The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
you're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Wednesday, November 16th, 2016. Thanks so much for joining us. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and we appreciate that. I want to give a special thanks to all of our patrons as I figure out how to use this new, something tells me I shouldn't mess with it because it's probably going to fall right in my face if I do. Trying to adjust this new microphone. So anyway, thank all of our patrons, existing and new patrons. I'm going to be chasing this microphone all night. Here it is. I want to give a special thank you to John H. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. James A. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. To all the new and existing patrons, we couldn't do it without you. We appreciate you. And let's get started with the show because there is a lot. There we go. Yeah, all I gotta do is tighten that right there. And we're good. All right, we're ready to rock and roll. There's a lot happening in the news. The phones are open, or the phones will be open. I would say give us about 20 minutes to get the ball rolling because there's so much to talk about that's happening in the world, particularly with Donald Trump. Interesting conflicts of interest that he is facing, considering all of the business that he has access to. And all of the money that he has made through having and owning businesses and properties. And that presents a tremendous opportunity for conflicts of interest. But first, I want to start with the story, the sad, tragic story that many people across social media actually were a part of because of Philando Castile's girlfriend. You remember over the summer, Philando Castile, I believe he was 32 years old, a young man who was licensed to carry a weapon, told the police officer that he had a weapon and let him know that he was reaching for his weapon so he could show him the weapon, something to that effect. However, had been stopped so many times and so many times he had gone through this procedure. For whatever reason, the officer this time felt like his life was threatened and shot and killed Philando Castile. There's an update in the story for Philando Castile, the St. Paul police officer. His name is Officer Yanez. He is being charged with second-degree manslaughter, and he is accused of escalating a mundane roadside exchange into a needlessly violent episode. I want to clap there. I want to clap there because I think that language kind of wraps it up perfectly, because that's what we see happen. And this is a picture of the officer, Officer Yanez. That's what happens. Mundane roadside exchanges escalate into needlessly violent episodes, ultimately ending in the death of a lot of times unarmed men. This time he was armed, but he was licensed to carry. Ramsey County Attorney John Choi said that no reasonable officer, knowing, seeing, and hearing what Officer Yanez did at the time, would have used deadly force under these circumstances. According to the New York Times, Officer Yanez is going to appear in court on Friday, and he was also charged with 2 felony accounts of an intentional discharge of a dangerous weapon. Now, granted, it's a long way between being indicted and a conviction. a very long distance between those 2 points. But it's almost like we have to stop, pause, and celebrate. And celebrate might not even be the right word. No, celebrate isn't the right word, but it's the best thing I have right now. We have to stop, pause, and recognize that this is a step in the right direction. It's something. And whether or not we actually get a conviction, unfortunately, it's not always in the hands of the facts, right? It's not always, it doesn't matter. Like, we've had video before, right? So it doesn't matter that we have video. It doesn't matter that it just doesn't matter. What matters is what goes on in the minds of the jury. That's all that matters in terms of whether or not you're going to get a conviction or to have another incident where an officer kills a person, kills a black person, kills a black man, and gets away with it. But if I could just put emphasis on the language that they used, that he escalated a mundane roadside exchange into a needlessly violent episode. The very first thing I think of when I read that line, first person I thought of was Sandra Bland. And how quickly police officers can go from zero to absolutely insane with rage in like 0.2 seconds. And how some officers look for these confrontations. They look for the opportunity to see if someone is going to try them. See if someone is going to challenge their authority, right? We've seen this before. And this time, unfortunately, it led to the death of Philando Castile. But we'll keep our eye on this and see if there's any sense of justice. Is there any justice that can be had in this system that is so designed, perfectly designed to operate exactly the way it operates, to not give us any justice? That's how the system is set up. That's how it I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant about it. I'm definitely hesitant. But, we'll see. Let's see how it goes. All right. So let's shift gears. I want to talk about Donald Trump and some of his pending conflicts of interest. There's a lot of different estimates of his wealth. Forbes puts an estimate of wealth on Donald Trump. They say he is worth about $3.7 billion. The headline that came out just before the show started was that Donald Trump doesn't want, and he's mentioned this before, but it's circulating again. He mentioned it first during the debate, and then on 60 Minutes this past Sunday, he mentioned that he's not interested in taking the $400,000 a year salary. And when you consider the fact of, we don't know what his annual income is, but we know he's worth $3.7 billion. $400,000 a year is absolutely nothing. So it makes sense for him to say, that's a pittance. I don't want that. I don't need that. And so that's essentially what he has said. He doesn't want it. He's going to, I think he required by law to take a single dollar, a minimum of $1. So he's taking that dollar. Interesting, historically, Herbert Hoover was a self-made millionaire who also turned down his salary or donated his salary to charity. And Donald Trump said that he would either donate his salary to charity or he would return it back to the Treasury. Part of the complication with the conflicts of interest is the fact that he has so much money tied up in a lot of business deals. And particularly the most glaring, there's two that stand out the most. The two that stand out, the National Labor Relations Board just ruled against Donald Trump in the Las Vegas case where Trump's organization was refusing to recognize or negotiate with workers that were on strike, or workers that were unionizing, and they refused to recognize. Just on November 3rd, just before the election, the National Labor Relations Board ruled against Donald Trump. Donald Trump is getting ready to be over the appointments. So there's 5 members of the board, and those members have a staggered terms of 5 years. There are 2 positions that are open right now. As soon as he is in office, he is going to nominate, which he should. That's his job. He's going to nominate 2 people to replace, to fill in the spots. And those people that he appoints, I mean, it happens. It happens like this. Every single administration appoints someone who has an outlook on business and labor relations as the administration. So there's no reason to have ever expected Donald Trump to put somebody in that position for the National Labor Relations Board that is pro-union. He's going to obviously put someone who's more in line, lockstep with his sensibilities and his business beliefs, which is pro-management, pro-business owners, pro-capital. Forget labor. But this is a unique situation because he has business before the board, and he's in the middle of negotiations now that are being forced on him by the board in Las Vegas with the Las Vegas hotels. So there's a great possibility, and there's going to be the appearance, no matter what he does, of a conflict of interest. There was an interesting quote from Rudy Giuliani. He was on CNN with Jake Tapper, I believe, and he was saying that, actually I have the quote here. He said, "You have to have some confidence in the integrity of the president." I don't think that there's any real fear or suspicion that he's seeking to enrich himself as president. Now, it's hard to be reasonable with people who are not reasonable. It is. It really is. Because what Giuliani is saying here, in some regards, is fair. And I'm not going to just attack him because he's Giuliani and he's a prick, which he is. And I hope, anyway, he is a prick. But I can't disagree with him because you can't just automatically assume that Donald Trump is trying to use the presidency to enrich himself when he's worth billions of dollars. However, during the primaries, during the general election, we saw countless examples of how he used his campaign contributions to funnel that into his own businesses. When he charged rent, when he paid rent to himself. When they flew in a plane, they flew in his plane. You know, this has been a method of putting dollars back into his account. Now, whether or not that is just the most practical thing to do, because why would you go rent somewhere else when you have your own facilities? Why in the hell would you go and get another plane when you have your own plane? It does seem rather practical, but it doesn't negate the reality that there are clear conflicts of interest that he's getting ready to run headlong into. And it was interesting in researching the story, that there is a mandate that states that federal contracting regulations mandate that government business shall be conducted in a manner above reproach to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest in government contractor relationships. Now, this quote is in context of his second potential conflict of interest that has everything to do with the hotel, another Trump hotel. This time, the Trump hotel is going to be in D.C. He's leasing from the General Services Administration. He's taken out a 60-year lease worth a total of $180 million, and it's a hotel that he's building inside of the historic post office pavilion. Now, the General Services Administration, Donald Trump is going to be their boss. And he's in the process of closing a deal that's a 60-year deal that's worth $180 million. Now, before he became President-elect Trump, this was probably all perfectly good and everything above the board. But this federal mandate, regulation mandate, says that government businesses shall be conducted in a manner above reproach to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest. I mean, you don't get much more apparent with the conflict of interest when you're dealing with the person who owns the contract is the same person who's the boss over the people who are going to sign the contract, right? He's on both sides of the aisle on this, both sides of the table on this. So there are these huge, and these are just two out of all of the conflicts of interest that he potentially has. Now, how does he avoid this? Because not that I'm trying to give him advice to actually make his next 4 years easier. I'm definitely not interested in making his next 4 years easier. I'm just saying to my own self be true, right? I would, to avoid this appearance, he clearly needs either a complete blind trust, an actual blind trust, not a blind trust where he's calling it a blind trust, but he has given it over to his children, but a real blind trust, or just completely divest from these companies, which is a huge thing. I mean, it's not as simple as I said it, right? I said it, but it's not that simple. He's going to, I mean, that's billions of dollars potentially that he's sacrificing to be the president. But you wanted to be the president of the United States, and I quite frankly don't have any sympathy for you because he's setting himself up for a painful 4 years where think about all the things that could go wrong. Think about all the people who may just do things because they want to be in his good graces, right? Think of people he may appoint that he's appointing and he doesn't even care. He's not looking for any conflicts. He's not looking for anyone to help him out. But there's over 4,000 positions that have to be filled. And then that's, imagine if just one person does something that is, I don't even want to say illegal, because it doesn't have to be illegal in this case. It simply gives, according to this mandate, the appearance of a conflict of interest. I don't know. What does he do? Does he divest? Does he do a blind trust? Or does he say, F it, I'm damned if I'm due, I'm damned if I don't, so just keep it? Here's another complexity. So his children are not able to get paid, but they are able to, let's say, volunteer and work in the White House with him. But if he sells his businesses or divests from his businesses, then they don't really have jobs or income, because for the most part, his children are tied. Their companies are tied to his companies, and their wealth is tied to his wealth, that's how you do when you have money. So, he's kind of entered into a cluster F of conflicts of interest, and it's going to be interesting to see how he actually survives this. Is he just going to go headlong into it and say, I don't care, they're going to attack me if I do, they're going to attack me if I don't? I don't know. All right, 857-600-0518 if you want to join the conversation. I think I'll start taking some calls here. But what do you think? I mean, how does he do it? Does he just ignore it and just keep going, or does he divest and try to be just the president? Most importantly, beyond just the story of Donald Trump's problem, is the story of Donald Trump's true nature, right? So if you look at the story out of Las Vegas, and you look at the fact that they don't even want to recognize the workers' right to organize, right? It shows you Donald Trump's disposition towards the average Joe, right? If I could use a cliche, right? It shows Donald Trump's disposition towards unions. It shows his disposition towards labor and workers. And the fascinating thing is that he was able to pull off this billionaire blue collar image where people believed that he was going to do something in favor of the working class, when all of his business practices to date demonstrate that he has absolutely no regard for the working class and that he will engage in activities and business practices that completely undermine the working class. Yet and still, people believe he's a blue collar billionaire and that he's going to do something it's cognitive dissonance at its best, right? Here's another example. He's going to drain the swamp. Well, he's surrounding himself by establishment players. He's surrounding himself by insiders, Washington insiders, but yet and still people believe that he's changing the system. I don't know. It's the ability for people to stretch themselves and contort themselves for the sake of justifying anything never, ever ceases to amaze me, because one thing is for certain: Donald Trump is not a blue collar billionaire. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
How you doing, Benjamin? This is Wayne. I had reached out to you on Twitter.
Hey, Wayne, how's it going, man?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How's it going? What's on your mind?
Doing all right. I have a couple of things. The first thing I wanted to start talking about is the Democrats and the Republicans, and I was thinking about this a couple of days ago. It seems like the Republicans, they play dirty, act dirty, and talk dirty, and then expect others to, act civilized. It's like I said, they act dirty, play dirty, and talk dirty. But then if the Democrats turn around and act the same way, the Democrats get condemned for it. And some may try to write that off as, oh, it's politics, that's what they do. But it's like, I don't understand it. It's like, how can you say one thing on the record, but then off the record proclaim something else?
Yeah.
And I also wanted to talk about the election, which was really on my mind all last week, like most of us.
Yeah.
And my issue wasn't that Hillary lost. That was not my issue. My issue is that Trump said all these things during his campaign. He, said all these things about women, immigrants. I mean, lots of horrible things. And for the majority of our country to essentially turn a blind eye to that and still vote for him, that's something to this day I would never, ever truly understand. I mean, I don't get it, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, I actually do get it, man. Thanks for the call. I'll break it apart for a little bit, if you don't mind, and tell you what I think. I'll answer the second question first and the first question second. I totally get how people could look into the abyss and say, that's okay. That's fine. They could look into the empty void of Donald Trump's character and the empty void of Donald Trump's intelligence, quite frankly. Like, I'm not just saying this to be an asshole to Donald Trump, but Donald Trump's not too bright, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, let me stop. But Donald Trump is not that bright, right? He's had to get or request top secret clearance for his son-in-law because he wants his son-in-law to be in on the daily briefings, which goes to suggest that he either has not the capacity, the wherewithal, or the desire to process information on that level. Everybody rich is not smart. Everyone successful is not smart. And I think that's the fitting description of Donald Trump. But I kind of went off on that tangent, but people looked at his level of ignorance and said, this is our guy. They looked at his level of bigotry and say, oh, shit, he's okay with us. That's just the kind of guy we like. They did that but they did that in a complete rejection of what they have been told was a politically correct culture, right? Donald Trump is the super virus of political incorrectness. President Trump in particular. And I mean, this is what happens after years and years and years of people, I mean, hell, I don't even know. I have so many examples. I don't even know where to start. Just go online. Just Go online. Don't even go to Tumblr. Just go to Twitter. Go online. Go to Facebook. I mean, you there is a politically correct culture that has run amok. And in response to that, it's for every action, there's an equal opposite reaction, right? You're going to get a backlash. Not everyone is going to bow down to your demands of political correctness. And I'm not saying this as a means of dismissing political correctness or dismissing identity politics. I think they both have their place. But when you constantly use it and you don't use it sparingly and you don't respect the adverse effects of using it on a regular basis, you create a virus that cannot be treated, and not a virus, I guess bacteria, right? By antibiotics. You create a super virus. You create something that, and Donald Trump is that. That's how that's how half of America was able to look, because they are completely, all day long, they've been called a racist, and some of them are racist, right? But it doesn't matter if they are. If all day long you're called a racist, eventually you're going to be like, oh, hell, I'm a racist and I want a racist. So what? Racism doesn't mean anything when everybody's a racist. So that was the first part. The second part, hell, what was your first question? I'm getting old. What was your first question? So the first question was about Hillary and it'll come to me. When it comes to me, I answer. But that's the first. That's the thing with Donald Trump and how people were able to look into his void of substance and void of integrity and character and say he's perfectly fine. This is what I want to say about that also. Everybody is doing this now. This is the new thing. Anything Donald Trump does that is out of the ordinary or unacceptable, which I agree, they are out of the ordinary and it is unacceptable. But everything now, they label it as, quote unquote, this is not normal. Don't normalize this. Okay, got you. But I'm seeing it 12 times a day. I'm sure other people, like, and we say, oh, well, you're just in your butt. No, everybody's online. Everybody's on some form of social media, and you're hearing it in the mainstream news where all you're hearing now is, this is not normal. This is not normal. Don't normalize this. Well, here's the thing. If everybody is saying this is not normal, eventually people are going to say, oh, you're just saying that. And people become numb to it. It's desensitizing. We are becoming desensitized to everything, not just being desensitized to identity politics, not just being desensitized to political correctness. We're being desensitized to white supremacy, and we're being desensitized to actual facts and truth. Like, the truth doesn't even matter anymore. I don't know I don't know if, I'm not sure if we actually can survive as a human race. I mean, bump Trump, we'll be fine in the next 4 years. I'm talking about long term. Like, those are some human traits that are very sketchy, that are very destructive. And I'm kind of questioning humanity, but, you know, caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, this is Daniel from Hawaii.
Daniel from Hawaii, what's on your mind, man?
So,
thanks for the call.
I had two things that I had one thing that I wanted to ask you, and I just had one response to what that guy was saying earlier about, you know, I can't believe so many people voted for Trump and whatnot. One thing I want to say about that, because I want to get that off of my chest first, is that, you know, you're looking at all the things that Trump said, the racist, xenophobic, this, that, whatever, all this bullshit that he's talking about. But at the same time, it's like you got an option between Trump that's saying all this stuff outright, but Clinton, she's the one who was talking about super predators back in the day, and she's the one who signed the crime bill. So, I mean, like, really, you know, you got one that's saying racist things and one that's doing racist things. How much of a choice really do you have? So, you know, I think that's a lot of part about it, too. And I don't discredit that there isn't some racist people that definitely voted for Trump and all that other stuff. But at the same time, it's like you've got two people that are pretty much acting in a racist kind of mentality, whether or not they realize it themselves or not.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut you there, only because your audio got really horrible. You got like a lot of wind down there. Okay. That's all I got. I don't totally disagree with you. I don't totally agree with you. I think it's foolish to, I mean, if you want my hell, all right, I'm in it now. I think it's foolish to draw certain false equivalencies. If you want to talk about like corruption, there's plenty of, between Hillary and Trump, that's part of the reason she lost. You couldn't distinguish. If you're talking about policies that are going to hurt the poor or help the poor, I don't know. It's really hard to distinguish. And that's one of the main reasons we have a problem with the Democrats, right? Their economic policies become indistinguishable. You want to talk about racism? Well, you're equating racism of 92, 94. Okay. I'm with you there. I pounded that drum too. You're comparing it to what's actively happening now. And whereas we're recovering from the damage that the Clintons did in the 90s, we're flirting with someone who wants to do a brand new set of racial damage. To me, that's not the same. That doesn't say Hillary should be in office and Trump shouldn't. It just says I'm not going to say that someone who has hurt me in the past makes somebody who's presently wanting to hurt me okay. That logic I can't get on board with. But, I mean, teach his own. All right. All right, why not? I mean, I have a lot of stories tonight, but why not? Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, this is Lee from Ohio. How you doing?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
Dude, terrified. Absolutely terrified. So I want to bring up a point that I don't think anyone's really talking about as far as Trump goes, is that at this particular time, he is causing fear and strife throughout people of color, neighborhoods, but also causing a deep divide between between whites and people of colors at this point. And I hate to take my personal experience as an indicator of what's going on because it's faulty in that. But I hang out with a pretty diverse crowd within my industry. But within the last week, I have been blamed and called a racist for Trump being in office, even though, I mean, there's no basis for it. And so it seems like there's a bigger divide and a backlash against pretty much white people as a whole, which, I know white people, we've had good run and what have you, and some of the stuff's deserved. But it's just I guess my basic concern is the widening gap that is being caused by Trump, and your thoughts on that.
Describe to me what happened in your office again. That was pretty interesting. What happened?
So we're sitting around a group of us discussing different political events, and then we had one of the guys walked up that actually hadn't met yet, black kid for the story, and I'm a white guy. Mm-hmm. And so we're going back and forth, and he told me he was talking about it and kind of interjected himself. And so I asked him, why he actually voted for Trump. And I said, why did you vote for Trump? Mm-hmm. And he said, I wanted you guys to get a chance to look in the mirror.
Interesting. He wanted to burn nihilist. He wanted to burn the whole thing down, basically. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of. So here's the other side of the equation, right? A lot of people are like, "Oh, well, Hillary Clinton's racist." Okay, yeah, all right, fine. Donald Trump, like, he straight out motivates and inspires a breed of racists that have been repressed and relegated to the dredges of society. And now they've had their coming out party. And I think this is what your coworker was talking about. He wanted you to see that this part of America has always been there. And so now he's saying it's going to be front and center and out and open. I think I'm never one to support burning down the house to save the house. I think this asinine. Mm-hmm. But we're here now. I mean, this is where we are. And it's not just about Trump as an individual. It's about the people he inspires, the people he motivates, whether he wants to or not, right? The craziest thing is that he can denounce them, but they see something in him and what he says and what he represents that makes them come out loud and proud and brash and bold. And so no matter how much he denounces it, he really fosters and foments to the top this type of this sentiment, which means that, like, not just, not just the people who are guilty of the actual acts, but like your coworker said, it's going to reflect on all of white America in certain respect. I don't know, man. Good luck to you. Keep your head low and, duck and bob and weave. That's all I can say, man, is bob and weave. Thanks for the call, dude. 857-600-0518 if you want to join the conversation. All right, let's get to some international news. Okay, so something interesting happened today. And unfortunately, I mean, Donald Trump is now the face of our international policy, or at least he will after January. But it was interesting that Turkish President Erdogan weighed in, as well as Syrian President Assad. He weighed in and really well, let me read the words for you, their own words. So Syrian President Bashar al-Assad calls Donald Trump a natural ally in the quote unquote fight against terrorism. So in one breath, he condemned President Obama for engaging in the conflict, both against ISIS, but also kind of borderline regime change, but not full regime change, right? There's this tension clearly, and Russia's on the other side of the equation. We've had this conversation plenty of times. So now he sees in Trump something that he didn't see in President Obama, and he sees that Trump could be a natural ally. He said, quote, opposing forces within the administration can deliver on his promises. If he fights the terrorists, it is clear that he will be a natural ally together with the Russians, Iranians, and many other countries who want to defeat terrorists. So when he's talking about the opposing forces, saying that if Trump can overcome the opposing forces, 9 times out of 10, he's talking about Mike Pence, who has clearly in the debates, you saw he clearly broke with Donald Trump and with regards to Russia and with regards to the safe zone. So Assad is saying if Trump can overcome the objections and the pressure he'll get from Mike Pence, which is going to be kind of like a Dick Cheney level kind of influence, because Donald Trump is as feckless as George W. Bush. So the vice president is kind of the de facto president. If Donald Trump can overcome that and ignore Mike Pence's propensity for regime change and instituting that no-fly zone, then he sees Donald Trump as a natural ally alongside with the Iranians and the Russians. And when he says terrorists, fighting terrorists, obviously he's regarding to actually 2 groups that Assad considers to be terrorists, both ISIS as well as the rebel factions. So it's, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Our freedom fighters could be their terrorists. You got it. You get the picture. So the interesting thing is that, I think Erdogan said it best in a very, in a way that I disagree. He said it best. Erdogan, the Turkish president of Turkey, criticized the anti-Trump protest here in America. And I want to get his exact words because, he said it the way that only he could say it. He said, hold on a second. The election process just ended. Show some respect. How will he ever govern? Let's see that first. Talking about all the protesters. He said also they're attacking Trump because the person they wanted wasn't elected president. So basically saying all of you in the streets, the Turkish president who just got done cracking down in the most draconian fashion against a coup, and then some, right? He didn't just crack down on the coup. He went above and beyond and cracked down on everybody. He doesn't approve of your protest, and he wants you to just settle down and give Donald Trump a chance so we can see what he would do. The reason I say that that's the most fitting statement is because I'm really curious how this plays out. Does Donald Trump ally with Russia and just kind of change the the global alignment? I mean, he's already talking about rolling back our influence in NATO, or our commitment rather to NATO. Right? He's already talking about being more protectionist, not really protectionist, but isolationist. Right? He's already talking about building the best relationship he can with Russia, which is not a bad thing. But to what extent and to what cost? Because, I know some people see the Russians as, and we'll talk about them in a second with the International Criminal Court, but some people see the Russians as valiant and noble. And I guess if we're going to follow that logic, we know some people who are sympathetic to the Assad regime. Plenty of my listeners are sympathetic to the Assad regime. I'm not going to open up that can of worms again. I probably will. I'm just lying. And then so to what extent and at what cost do we have this cozy relationship with Russia, Syria, and Iran? I'm just curious. I'm with you, Erdogan. Let's see where this goes, because they're not just, we clearly are going to have to do things that are in their interest for them to consider us an ally. Not always a bad thing. Everything Syria does, Russia does, doesn't mean we have to oppose it. Clearly, I don't believe in that false dichotomy. But I would be fascinated to see after 4 years where America, because that's really what Trump is here for. Trump is the international face of our empire. Where does America fall? I mean, it's like a reshaping of the West, right? And I read a ridiculous headline. I didn't read the article. I'm not going to lie to you. But the headline was saying that Angela Merkel was now the leader of the free world. And the basic premise was because Donald Trump is not capable of being that leader. But actually, and I think that premise is bad, faulty, right? Because we have institutions to support Trump, right? Trump's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to destroy the world. But that headline may not be completely wrong, because if Trump begins aligning more so with Russia, because let me start here. There is still clearly a East-West divide. I don't know why, right? The West and the rest, right? Clearly. American imperialism has seen to it. It would be fascinating to see an alignment between Syria, Iran, Russia, and Trump's America. What would that do to the global order? I'm not saying bad or otherwise. But I do say it very soberly, and I don't look at any actor on the international stage and consider any actor to be either benevolent or anything but self-interested, right? There is absolutely nothing that Assad or Putin or anyone, Erdogan for that matter, or Trump, there's nothing that they're going to do that's not in their own best interest, both as a nation, but individually as a politician. So I don't look at anybody, America or Russia, as benevolent or good actors. They're just doing what's in their best interest. So that often means that both America and Russia and Syria and Iran, all the international players, China, that means that at times we're on the right side of history and at times we're on the absolute worst side of history, which means we can't look at the international order through these overly simplistic lenses and simply say America's the evil actor, so that must mean whoever opposes America is the good actor. That is almost like a childlike interpretation of the world, and it's completely inaccurate. The more accurate observation is that all of these actors are after their own best interests, both as a nation and as an individual politician. And so you can expect them to do things sometimes that are correct and sometimes that are very wrong. And to that end, I will be fascinated to see to what lengths Donald Trump is interested in going to make this cozy allyship with Syria and with Russia, who has newly just recently today exited the International Criminal Court. All right, let's take this call if they're still here. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, Ben. This is Vita from San Leandro. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Vita?
Good. I'm open to the Trump's reach with Russia. I'm open to that to see how it opens up, how it falls out. I'm curious too. And also, I'd like to speak about the racial that called a few minutes ago about the racial divide between black and white, and his interaction with his co-workers and so forth. And he's the fear and so forth how black people have. and for me is that this, far as Trump with the racism and so forth that we continue to speak about, is that it's not just Trump. We have to look at the party as a whole, and we have to look at the policy behind that and the laws and the historical factors, how it has played out, especially on the backs of blacks. And it really amazes me how it's just this new awakening and revolution that they bring up now. Oh wow, racism and how it's going to affect me, the poor white working class. This is something that we have experienced the whole time. And where were their voices? Where were their actions with the policies on both sides, whether it was Democratic or Republican, and the outrage and just even around the injustice around the shootings of that has occurred in our community, the police and so forth. Where was the outrage there? Where was the people that are in positions within the police department or have friends or in different places in government or even in the private sector? Where was their conversation? Where was their voices in the media when they had opportunity to speak up or gather groups or new organizations? Like earlier you had the DSA on and their social justice, talking to other white people about, racism. Where was all that? Where was the outrage of that? Even also when you also asked a guy how many black people are in the groups, he couldn't tell you how many people were in the group. But they're talking about racism and solving problems with social justice that affect black people without their voices included. So that's all I had to say. And also, could you tell us a little bit more about Politics and Grits, the hours and the phone number?
Yeah. Yeah, so the phone number is the same,
Thank you so
857.
much.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for the call. Always a pleasure speaking with you, Vita. Politics and Grits is every Sunday at 10 a.m. We do about an hour and a half, and we mix in some soul music. And I'm an old soul, so I do everything from Frankie Beverly and Maze, to Earth, Wind, and Fire, to the Isley Brothers, that baby making music. That's what I specialize in. Brandon is on the show with me. Brandon Sutton from Project Sanity. Anoa Changa from The Way with Anoa. Anoa brings some hip hop and some soul, and Brandon just brings this eclectic mix of, I don't know what the hell it is, but some of it's really good. And we talk about politics in between listening to some good music. So check us out Sunday mornings at 10 from 10 to 11:30 on Spreaker. There's no YouTube. It's all on Spreaker.com. So to your point, let me stop and do this. To your point, I can tell you where they were. You said where were they when things were happening before? Same place some black voices were. Most black voices. With this false sense of post-racial America. This false sense of, it's he's a host on Sirius XM, Michael Signorelli. I read his book about the fight for LGBT rights, and it's called, I think the title actually puts it best. It's called victory fatigue or victory blindness. Like, it's the concept that you get a win and you don't keep fighting, and you kind of take it for granted. You take that win for granted and you don't keep fighting. Like, we've had that victory fatigue or that victory blindness in the black community ourselves for a long time. And it wasn't until we see the videos, like it wasn't until Rodney King's video came out, right, that we were reminded that this is how it is in America. And then now with videos coming out every week, unfortunately, it shows you that it's not that anything has changed. It's just now we're seeing it. So we were all lulled to sleep. We were sleeping at the wheel. So, of course, if black America sleep at the wheel, of course, white America is going to be sleep at the wheel. They're not going to listen. I'll use myself as an example. You're not going to get anything out of me on, let's say, LGBTQ rights unless I'm confronted and I'm confronted and it's brought to my attention, and then I intentionally go learn. Because it just has nothing to do with my life. Not personally. Extended family, yeah. But me personally, no, it doesn't. Just like it took me being confronted with real life sexism, like real life harassment, just smacked me in the face. Until you have a personal experience with something, it just doesn't exist. So it's not a surprise that white people don't know or understand race or that they were absent, because it's not their life. So we confront them. We let them know and see who's on our side, who's not on our side. I don't begrudge them because they weren't there before. I mean, hell, most of those people on the show yesterday were kids, like young enough to be my children. So I'm not going to begrudge the fact that they weren't there 20 years ago when they're not even 20 years old yet, right? But if they want to be an ally now and they're really ready to be down for the cause, then I want them to be down with us, and we can help them. We can show them. We can point them to it. We can help educate them if you feel like educating them, or we could point them to Google. I don't begrudge people who weren't there before. I would say that I begrudge people who are fully aware of the problem. I begrudge and simply use that awareness for clicks. Those are the people I have a problem with. People who use their quote unquote wokeness to obtain a platform that's not really about solving the problems. That's really about just pontificating and showing the world that they know so much. It's like, one thing I'm never going to be, because it's not natural to me, but also I don't like it. I'm not going to be the most outspoken. I'm not going to try to be a leader on for feminism. It's not my job, not my role. It's not my place. There's plenty of other voices, because I just don't. I mean, that to me is kind of not only pretentious, but it's also opportunistic. And you got plenty of white people like Joan Walsh who got the language of intersectionality down sometimes, and they just capitalize on it without ever helping us fix some of those core problems. That's the people I have problems with. I don't have problems with people who weren't there 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago. I have a problem with people who know damn well what the problem is, and they're just using it to make money. All right. We're running out of time here, and I got to cover Russia on the international court, but this caller has been so patient. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Wait, me?
Yep, this is you. You're live. What's your name?
Oh, sorry. I'm Alex from Indiana.
Hey, how's it going, man? What's on your mind?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I guess, I was just tuned into your show out of curiosity, and I guess one thing that really doesn't help with these election results, if I'm pretty sure you're aware of this, you might be aware of this too, is I'm just really frustrated that as bad as it is that Trump's president and Republicans have majority control of the Senate and the House, I'm just really depressed thinking that it just doesn't feel like they're doing a good enough resistance against them, especially with how scared people are now. Like, looking on Twitter, it's just all these protests going on, and how Sean King's recording all these bad incidents right now on his Twitter account and stuff, and I'm just a little worried as how seriously are the Democrats taking that. That's all. Thank you.
That's a good question. Thanks for the call. I don't know. I don't want to. I know that it seems like a big portion is headed. They're going headlong back into the same mistakes that lost them the White House and the Congress and everything. And I know the problem is much deeper than just the federal level, that we are getting destroyed on the state level. I mean, we're getting crushed on the state level to the point where they are not too far away from amendment-sized majorities. I know that. But I don't know that they learned their lesson. All I can say is, let's see. I know one thing. Here's the benefit. Here's the benefit of the next 4 years, right? If these Hillary Clinton holdouts, people are still bitter in their soul about her losing. It's only a week ago. I get it. It takes you a little while to get over your bitterness. Those same people who have turned that bitterness towards relitigating the primary as though Bernie Sanders was the one to lose. No, bitch, it wasn't Bernie Sanders that lost. It was Hillary Clinton that lost. If that contingency could shut up and just chill out, we do have the benefit of being in the opposition. And I think I truly value the position of opposition, particularly when you could be in the opposition and be principled about it, and to be in the to have both logic on your side and to be on the right side of an argument. Because let's be real, okay, I've got a whole lot. Okay, you just opened up like 30. I have to talk about Russia tomorrow. 9 times out of 10 if you look at Donald Trump's proposals, 9 out of 10 are things that we should oppose. We must oppose. Not only because he's in office, but because they are wrong and they are detrimental, harmful, and we should be happy that finally those people who were making excuses for President Obama for the last 8 years finally can be genuine and not disingenuous. They can be sincere and not contort themselves. So finally, the left, the Democrats, progressives can all pretty much be on the same side, because Donald Trump is going to do things that we must take a principled stance against. Now, who's the leader of that opposition? It shouldn't be people who have been disingenuous for the last 8 years, I'll tell you that much. But, fall back and let the principled voices go front and challenge this system that Donald Trump is trying to piece together. But I said that to say we can win this very easily because we have probably 9 times out of 10, we're going to be on the right side of the argument. And then there's going to be that 1 time out of 10 where we're going to have to question ourselves and say, okay, are we going to oppose Donald Trump just because we want to oppose Donald Trump? Or are we going to go ahead and support him on this because it's the right thing to do? Some of us, that's where you're going to see the real character. Some of us are going to oppose him just because he's Donald Trump. Others of us are going to support him because it might be that 1 time out of 10 that he's doing the right thing. The real question is, what do we do when we get back in power? Because it's easy to be true and genuine when you're out of power and you're opposing somebody as ridiculous as George W. Bush. It's painfully difficult to be in power and have to oppose people that you once agreed with. I think that's the real question. So what do we look like in 4 years when we kick Donald Trump's ass? Do we go right back to justifying and excusing anything and everything that Democrats do? That's the real question. Here's the other thing. I want to start a new clip on this. It blows me away to see quote unquote allies, people who had so much to say about President Obama, would not give President Obama an inch to breathe on anything. I'm not saying that you were wrong. I'm just saying I took note. I took good notes. I listened to everybody. And it's fascinating to see some of those same people who had qualms with President Obama, principled, I'll give you that. Now falling in line to say, let's give Donald Trump a chance, or let's work with Donald Trump, or let's not just oppose him. All these other, wait a minute, but you oppose President Obama at every turn. Sometimes rightfully, sometimes you were just being an asshole, but you oppose him at every turn. You cannot tell me that you believe that Donald Trump is going to be such a transformative president that he's not going to be almost in lockstep in terms of imperialism, in terms of economics, as President Obama. You can't tell me. You can't tell me. Even if we realign with Russia and Iran, it's still going to be a form. We're just going to be on the opposite side of the equation. You cannot tell me that Donald Trump is going to be so transformative that you feel it's the right thing to do to give him a chance, especially when so many of his policies that he has already presented to us are an anathema to progressivism. It effing blows me away, which makes me think that maybe some of your critiques, and I'm not just talking about white people here, because I don't want anybody to think that this is that I have a racial dynamic. I'm actually talking about quite a few black people. It makes me think that it's easy to be a contrarian. It's easy to have an angle. I mean, it's so easy to point out something against your own people. I'm really talking to black folks now. It's easy to do that. And then you fall in line and say, well, we should put something together and work with Trump. Negro, did you put something together and go try to work with President Obama? And I'm not seeing this. Listen, I don't mention something on my show until I see a trend. And I am seeing a trend in both white progressives and some black leftists who are now all of a sudden falling in line with the man who said he wants to institute federal stop and frisk. But you were the principled opposition against Obama. Somebody please tell me, do you really believe Donald Trump is that transformative, that he's going to be such a dynamically different leader, that he's not going to spread America? You got to understand, American imperialism is not just about an ideological difference between, it's not even about an ideological difference between America and the USSR, right? American imperialism has always been about the advancement, the spread, and the security of capitalism abroad. You do not believe that Donald Trump is going to oppose capitalism and the expansion of capitalism abroad, do you? Because if you don't, then that's the number one reason. That is the only reason for, I mean, even when it was an ideological fight between Russia, USSR, and the United States, it was an economic ideological fight. So you cannot tell me that you oppose President Obama because he was an imperialist and then say you want to work with Donald Trump? The hell out of here. Y'all play us for a fool. Likewise, I'm trying to think, should this be a separate clip? Yeah, I'm going to make this a separate clip. Here's the other thing. I am very curious to see if let me start here. Let me tell you the reason for my positioning in this statement and the way I am. Because I have a pretty good, actually a very robust understanding of the role of the presidency. It's actually something I studied on a master's level. I've been studying it on the doctoral level, but I haven't finished my PhD, so I don't really claim it. But I've studied it for a very long time. And I know the role of the presidency domestically as well as internationally. And I gave a speech in maybe December of 2008 after Obama was elected. And in that speech, I said, do not look to President Obama to do and fix the problems of the black community. One, because it's not the office of the presidency. It's not the role of the office of the presidency to do that. Not in this, not here, not now. The fight that we're fighting for the black community is not something that the office of the presidency can fix. When we did not have the right to vote, that was something that the federal government could get involved with and fix, right? We're talking about something so much more subtle and so much more vicious than just the not having the right to vote. We're talking about a cancer that has been here all of existence of America, throughout the existence of America. We're talking about white supremacy and the role of white supremacy and the criminalization of black people and the vilification of black people and the reason that police officers trigger and they go from 0 to 100 like that officer did with Philando Castile. We're talking about something so much more insidious and nefarious that has been here forever. That is not something that the federal government can fix. And if that's the problem that we're looking for the president to fix, we were setting ourselves up to be disappointed from Obama from day one. Yeah, Ben, but he did something for the LGBTQ community. Stop. Full stop. The LGBTQ community, you know why Obergefell versus Hodges spread marriage equality through the United States? Well, the V part. It was a case that started as a lawsuit that made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. Barack Obama was not down at the Supreme Court fighting on the side of the LGBTQ community. He just happened to be the president during the time. So all this, well, he did this, he did that for these people. Look at the problems that the black community is facing right now. How many of those problems can even be addressed from the federal level? I'm not saying that none of them could, but I'm saying we went in, and I was only talking to like 500 people at the time, right? So nobody gave a damn, right? Nobody was going to listen to me. But we went in with this expectation of getting the hookup from a black man. And some of these same people who have used the last 8 years to build their platforms attacking President Obama because he ain't do nothing for the black community are the same people who are not going to ask a damn thing of Donald Trump or say anything when Donald Trump doesn't do something for the black community. Well, we don't have any expectation for Donald Trump. You should. If you have the expectation of Barack Obama to fix the problems of the black community, then you should have the same expectation. The powers of the presidency didn't change just because the color of the president changed. It's like owning a business and you're a black person, you own a business and somebody come in and they want to hook up and you can't hook them up and they get mad at you. They go next door to a white owned business and don't say shit to them. And this is what I'm seeing from some of my people. Some of my people, we stand in solidarity on stuff. I already see them adjusting their language towards Donald Trump when we should be in a principled opposition against almost 9 out of 10 things that he wants to do. Oh, I almost said the N word like I say it on a regular basis. Good God Almighty. These Negroes are lining up to, have this sympathetic approach and tone to Trump because we should work with them. I could have told you guys. We weren't going to get nothing from President Obama. And I don't think we should have expected nothing from him. Because for many of reasons, the number one reason that is the most accurate reason, in my opinion, is the fact that the problems that we are fighting are not things on the racial problems. Right? Now, there's a flip side that we can tear President Obama a new hole, and we'll talk about that, right? But in terms of racial justice, how many investigations did they open? They opened the investigations. The problem isn't whether or not we're investigating. The problem is the systemic nature of racism and white supremacy and how it's embedded in everything. And you expected him to come in and fix almost 300 years of systemic racism that's embedded in the system? The hell y'all thought he was? Like Jesus mixed with Nat Turner mixed with Moses? And I said it in this speech. I wish I could find it. It was at a church down in Florida. I might go look it up because I know they did video. But I said it then. I said, the best you can expect from President Obama is to be a good figure for black people to look at. And I called that. Listen, if I don't know nothing else, I know pretty women because I married one, and I know politics. and I know the office of the presidency. The office of the presidency on so many domestic issues is to be the facilitator of the system that was already built before they got there. And to be a figurehead on other things. President Obama is simply a figurehead in the LGBTQ fight. He didn't fight that fight. The LGBTQ community fought that fight and won that battle in court after years of fighting. And President Obama was just the pretty face to put on the cover of the first LGBT president, just like they crowned Bill Clinton, whatever. But I'm saying we had the wrong expectation because and this is the last thing I said, and I'm going to leave it alone. I said, if you want the types of changes that we need, then we got to talk to the mayor. We got to talk to the police commissioner. We have to talk to our local officials who create the culture that saturates the police officers that goes out there and kills us. But ain't nobody even showing up to their local city council meeting. They're too busy online blaming President Obama for not fixing our problems. Should we have a civics lesson? And I'm not saying that, yes, I am. I'm saying that to be an asshole. I'm going to stop bullshitting. Yeah, I am being an asshole. But truly, we had the wrong expectations of President Obama. Likewise, the role of the presidency in the international community is the expansion and the continuation of American imperialism. And when I say American imperialism, I don't say it as the boogeyman. I say it in the form of our corporations being able to safely and securely expand their businesses abroad without fear of plunder from other states or non-state actors. And using our military to secure that. See, the way I define it, it just sounds like good business. But that is imperialism. And the role of the presidency has always been the expansion of imperialism and the protection of the business class. It has. You could break down almost all the way back to the beginning, maybe with some few exceptions. But that's been the role of the presidency. And that role is not changing from Barack Obama to Donald Trump. And I said all that to say, if you had a problem with President Obama because of imperialism, then you should have just as much problem with Donald Trump because he's going to continue the same imperialistic system without any challenge, maybe TPP. Now, the way we can get on President Obama is the exact way the black neoliberal class doesn't want us to get on President Obama, and that is on economic domestic policy. Because there are plenty of things we could have addressed from an economic perspective to address the structural problems of why half of African-American households only make less than $35,000 a year. That's what we should talk about, but that's not what people are talking about. Nobody wants to talk about that. They all, that's what we should talk about because that's something that he actually can lead the way on. He can't fix it by himself. He has an intransigent Congress, but he could be the outspoken leader who never gives up that battle, and he did not. I don't even think he fought that battle. So I take it personally when people bring irrational critiques. I don't want to say irrational, and that's not the right word, but the critique is you're critiquing the wrong person. President Obama is not the person to argue with about police violence. Your city mayor and your police commissioner, those are the people you need to argue with about police violence. And with that, I bid you adieu.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.